independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Craig Collins sitting in for Chad Benson today on President's Day. Happy President's Day to everybody. Let's dive straight into a lot of things. Got a lot of things to talk about, a lot that happens every single weekend that I think we all think is interesting. Some of this stuff, though, honestly, I'm surprised we're still debating a lot of this stuff. I'm surprised that, it makes us so mad that Trump tweets, by the way. I get it. If you're Will Barr, if you're anybody, you might eventually get a tweet that you dislike. But the fact that the president tweets is something we've lived with for quite a while now, right? This is the kind of thing that most of us are very aware of. Most of us understand that every single day the president of the United States is going to wake up. He's going to give his thoughts out to the world via Twitter. And everyone that he talks about kind of has to live with it at this point. He certainly doesn't think he's wrong. Before I get to that, though, that's second on this list of things I want to hit because I got a bit of Barr audio that you might find interesting if you haven't heard it yet. But first, I want to hear from the president, a couple clips on the president, talking about the kind of ridiculousness, the weird way in which some people that very much dislike the president, wind up getting years, potentially, in prison, and people who dislike the president, well, they don't really get in trouble at all. Let's hear that first one from Trump.
And I want to thank the Justice Department for seeing this horrible thing. And I didn't speak to them, by the way, just so you understand. They saw the horribleness of a 9-year sentence for doing nothing. You have murderers and drug addicts. They don't get 9 years. 9 years for doing something that nobody even can define what he did. Somebody said he put out a tweet. And the tweet, you based it on that. We have killers. We have murderers all over the place. Nothing happens. And then they put a man in jail and destroy his life, his family, his wife, his children. 9 years in jail. It's a disgrace.
Yeah, exactly. It is a disgrace to think that the way in which Roger Stone initially was prosecuted, initially had the results that he had, and then you compare that to Andrew McCabe and what happened with Andrew McCabe recently. Although I have read that maybe some of this had to do with a botched process from the beginning, that maybe a lot of the evidence, a lot of the things that would have eventually doomed Mr. McCabe were not exactly utilized correctly by those trying to prosecute him. And so in that world, there might be some chance that mistake is just made on that level. But if not, the way in which those two kind of things existed, and the fact that the president is actually congratulating the Justice Department, by the way. Barr, not a big fan of the president right now, but Donald Trump doesn't seem to mind quite a bit at all about what the Justice Department has been doing recently. So let's hear that second clip from Donald.
In the meantime, Comey walks around making book deals. The people that launched the scam investigation, and what they did is a disgrace. And hopefully it'll be treated fairly. Everything else will be treated.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt that that's going to happen. Sorry, Mr. President, Mr. Donald Trump. I don't think that we're going to get a treated fairly situation in all this, but it's the way that it's been going. No one should be shocked. This is nothing that we're not used to at this point. And that exactly, again, is my point about the tweeting thing. I was surprised. I don't know why I was surprised, but I was surprised to see William Barr complain about the fact that maybe he's caught a couple as well. Everyone does at some point. That's the way that he communicates with you. That's the way the President of the United States chooses to communicate with the people, chooses to make you aware of what he does and doesn't like about anything going on in the world. It's different. It's not at all the way that usually people do this kind of thing. And at some points, sure, a lot of us think, I wish he'd tweet less. Even his own people. A lot of people that support this president would probably agree with Mr. Barr on this, say, you know what, we agree too. He could keep some of those to himself, but it would not be him. And honestly, when you look at his current approval ratings, when you look at how much people like this guy, when you look at the way that people are voting and turning out for him in these primaries when they don't have to, if you want nothing else but to understand the popularity of this president with the people that support him, look at the way he's getting voted for in primaries that don't matter. He is doing incredibly well. His approval rating is through the roof right now. The economy is doing great. And if the guy continues to tweet his dissatisfaction for anyone, anything, I think eventually you just accept these kind of things. But let's hear from William Barr.
I cannot do my job here at the department with a constant background commentary that undercuts me.
I'm trying to find a better way to say it. You're going to have to. I think that's the rule of the day. You're going to have to. Donald Trump, the president, is very proud of his free speech ability to tweet whatever he wants to tweet. He feels very good about that ability, about that freedom, and he doesn't seem concerned at all. And even though there have been missteps, I think, as anyone on Twitter will tell you, that every so often we all tweet things we kind of wish we could have back, or maybe we have a misspelling here. It's a thing that happens to every human. Our current president likes to do that himself. He likes to go out into the world, tweet the things that he thinks, and people hear them and then have to live with them. So, Mr. Barr, I know you've been a huge supporter in so many ways of this current president, but this is just one thing that, in all honesty, there's no better way to say it, but you're going to have to live with it. Let's hear two.
To have public statements and tweets made about the department, about our people in the department, our men and women here, about cases pending in the department, and about judges before whom we have cases, make it impossible for me to do my job and to assure the courts and the prosecutors in the department that we're doing our work with integrity.
Again, a lot of people on Donald Trump's side of the aisle, a lot of people that support this president would agree that it wouldn't be the worst thing for him to tweet a little less often. I just want to continue to repeat that William Barr is not alone in the feeling that, hey, if we could put away the cell phone, I don't know, do you wonder if the president is sitting there at like dinner chatting with Melania and ripping off a tweet? Is that the way that this happens? I'm curious sometimes if that's the way that this sort of thing happens. If he's just like any other person, kind of just sitting around, he's got a phone in hand, and that's how he handles all of this kind of stuff. But in doing those kind of things, he has incredibly performed to his base, to people that love him. He has done a miraculous job of getting a lot of the things that he promised on the campaign trail done. This is a president that has been very effective, and a president that obviously comes from the reality TV world. He's not afraid of being out there in public on his own. He's not afraid of attacking someone. He's not afraid of any of that stuff. And so I don't know if Mr. Barr expected Donald Trump to agree with him. It's been very few times that something has been reported in public, or maybe, a couple of the people that support the president but are public figures, people like Sean Hannity, when they really go after things that Donald Trump does, I think every so often he reconsiders something. It's not often, but it happens. But the president was not going to reconsider his desire to tweet, so I don't know if that goal was what, he really had in mind, to get him to stop, to get him to slow down, any of that stuff. And look, I don't want to say that I totally support the tweeting either. I don't. Personally, I also probably wouldn't hate it. And I'm sure listening, a majority of people out there would say, you know what? It would be less risky. There'd be less chance to have the one, mistake out there made and the mistake sent out to all the world via Twitter. You know what's funny about Twitter, actually? And also it's kind of funny about like a podcast interview instead of a radio interview or anything else. A lot of people seem, and I don't think so much with Twitter anymore, it seems like we've gotten to the point where everyone's aware that platform is as public as possible, that anything you say there, no matter how long ago you say it, can probably be recycled back, can be talked about again, can, be something that people judge you on forever. And sometimes you see it in the podcast world, too. Someone will do a radio interview and say one thing, and then they'll get in front of a microphone and they'll know it's just a podcast, they're just recording. So they say something totally different, or they say something very open and honest, and they get in trouble for it. And that's the funny thing, is when you forget that these platforms are public, that people will hear and see the things that you're sharing and saying, that every so often you go a little too far. But that doesn't scare our current president, Donald Trump. He's willing to share everything he thinks. And so far, it has only benefited him. So if there's anyone that's going to say, this needs to stop, we need to slow this down, I don't know if there's a single person on the planet that could even convince Donald Trump to stop tweeting. I don't think there's a single person on the planet. I just want to reiterate that. I hope that William Barr is listening. I'm going to play two other quick clips, and then I got to take a break. I want to talk a whole bunch more about the new white knight in the Democratic side of this thing. Bloomberg seems to be, I don't know if he's actually the favorite internally yet, but I feel like he's getting fairly close to being that favorite internally. He's supposed to be more moderate and in the middle, which obviously the Democratic Party itself would very much want. It's weird the way they're so anti-Bernie. And not saying that I like Bernie Sanders, obviously, but he's winning things, and the Democratic Party now for the second time is trying to do everything they can to mitigate those wins, to take away from those wins, and to find at least some other candidate who's more in the middle than crazy old Bernie Sanders. But that's what he's going to do. But you know what's interesting? Sam Donaldson, longtime reporter, came out very much in support of Mr. Bloomberg. Let's hear from Sam.
Mike Bloomberg is best suited to take on Donald J. Trump this November and beat him. And that's something I think is very important for the country. You're right. When I was a working reporter in Washington for 52 years, I never did anything like this. And I think it's very important now. We are in the grip of a sick, ignorant man. He's mean. He's corrupt. And if we don't get this right, we may lose the things that have made this country the best place to live in the world, and that shining city on the hill that Ronald Reagan used to talk about, which was the envy of the world. So I'm in it.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much for your thoughts on this whole thing. It is interesting to see a guy say that he hasn't weighed in at all and that he needs, vilifying President Trump, saying that he is the devil, that he has to be stopped, that, all of the things that are said about the current president seem to neglect the simple fact that some things have gotten quite a bit better than they used to be, the economy being one of them. Most people interviewed, and I think this was on either side of the aisle, said that they're happy with the current economy. And then they asked them who deserves credit for the current economy. Does President Trump or does Obama before him deserve credit? And while some people, sure, still said they thought Obama deserved some credit, a whole lot more people, obviously, said, and this was on both sides of the aisle, this is not just Republicans, said that Donald Trump deserves credit for the current economy. There are good things that have happened, Sam. I'm not sure you're aware, but let's hear a little bit more.
Thanks to Citizens United, a Supreme Court case, everybody's money can get in and do so. Bloomberg is putting his own money in. He's not going to be beholden to anybody when he wins this race. On the other side, Mr. Trump is getting money from Sheldon Adelson, the casino magnate, in that's okay, in Las Vegas, and other fat cats. So he's got a big war chest. And Bloomberg has a big war chest. And I'd rather...
Yeah, Bloomberg has a whole lot of money. That is absolutely true. He's got a whole lot of money, and that is the biggest excitement. That's why people like Bernie Sanders are already afraid of the Bloomberg campaign, who literally has 0 delegates so far, hasn't even appeared in a single debate, and yet this guy seems like this looming figure that's about to jump in here and complicate the whole thing even further. Right now, the craziest thing is that we still have like 5 viable candidates, although Biden is not one of them, real quick. I will take a break, though, because I'm excited to continue to talk Bloomberg and how people are reacting. Things are not going to be as good as you think. If you are at all from the East Coast, if you're familiar with any of the goings-on in New York, there's problems. There's things this guy has said. There's things this guy has done. Stop and frisk is getting a lot of attention. There's a lot of stuff that's about to come out of the woodshed as far as a Bloomberg goes, and I don't think any amount of money can bury that. But this is the Chad Benson Show. I am Craig Collins filling in today on President's Day. Happy President's Day to you. We'll be coming up with more after this.
I, you, he, she, it. Lucy is a girl.
Point of personal privilege. Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Shut up, boo. Ain't nobody got time for this.
This is the Chad Benson Show.
Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson today on President's Day. Happy President's Day to you. Hopefully you have the day off. It's usually a holiday at a lot of offices, so Chad's not here, and Craig Collins gets to jump in on a one-off. I love doing the show, by the way. It's a lot of fun. I have some more stories about Bloomberg. Bloomberg is now, for whatever reason, Mr. Michael Bloomberg, former mayor of New York, the scariest candidate, I would say, on the Democratic side for Democrats. They seem to be very weary of his focus on Super Tuesday. The guy doesn't really seem to care about much of what's going on right now. He doesn't care about gaining delegates till we get to Super Tuesday. And it further segregates this whole thing, right? It further complicates every part of who is going to actually be the nominee, if anyone is going to get enough delegates to be the potential nominee. If we're going to have a very interesting issue in the next few months as they continue to kind of break everything apart. Is Buttigieg a real candidate? I don't know. He's done well so far. Sanders has done the best so far, essentially tying Mayor Pete and then doing quite a bit better than everyone else, although no slam dunks. Bernie did much worse in New Hampshire than he did 4 years ago. So that says a lot about how much people are still, enjoying his message as opposed to wanting someone more in the middle. And Bloomberg is supposed to be this guy in the middle, and he's already very much scaring people like Bernie Sanders. Bernie, what do you got to say about it?
Buy the presidency, at least he's going to try to buy the presidency, by spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on TV ads.
Yeah, he's going to spend a whole lot of money. I think he said something like $1 billion. By the way, I'd love to know, because it's not going to work. He's not going to win. The president is on a very easy track to re-election here, in my opinion, mostly because there is still no obvious candidate on the Democratic side, and that's a real bad sign right now. And I'm not kidding at all. Michael Bloomberg has started to float out who his VP candidate might be if he were to pick one already, and he's saying Hillary Clinton. And so anyone that was wondering, will Hillary somehow come back? She said she was done. She said she was out. But will something pull her back into all this? It looks like it might be Michael Bloomberg, who would also move. He would move out of New York, so two people on the same ticket weren't running and living in the same place. It's sort of a complication in and of itself. But that whole idea, the amount of money he has, everything else that he has, and maybe even a Hillary bump would take this guy into the stratosphere, scares everybody, including Bernie. I don't think I have enough time for the rest of the clips, but I want to keep talking about that because I'm very curious. If you had $1 billion, if you won, I guess, a couple Powerballs to get to that amount of money, because I don't think it's just one usually. You got to win maybe two of those. But if you had that much, what would you spend it on? Would you spend it on trying to beat Donald Trump in this election? Because I would recommend he not do that. I think there's a lot of better things you can buy, Michael. An island comes to mind as one thing maybe you should throw a little money around on, but that's just me. This is Craig Collins filling in for the Chad Benson Show. It is President's Day. I'm going to have a great time with you guys the next few hours. I got some sillier topics, too. Did you know to sleep better on the road, you can just smell your ex's or your current relationship shirt? That's a real thing. Talk about it after this.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson on President's Day. Happy to be with you guys today. Chad is back tomorrow, so don't worry. Everything gets back to normal tomorrow. There's a lot of stuff that went on over the weekend that interested me. Michael Bloomberg has been the new kind of white knight savior of the Democratic Party, at least to some people. He did, by the way, pledge, I think this was a while ago, to spend his money regardless of if he gets the nomination or not. So this means even though he might have already dropped something like $400 million, that he's got another $600 million to throw out there into the world when and if it's needed for whoever needs it. Maybe not his campaign if he doesn't make it, but anybody's campaign. And just the money itself seems to be what really scares most of the other candidates, Bernie Sanders being the top candidate right now, at least. Bernie was talking about this just recently. Let's hear a little bit more from Bernie.
I got news from Mr. Bloomberg, and that is the American people are sick and tired of billionaires buying elections.
Yes, they are, I guess, according to Bernie Sanders. Yes, they are, I guess. But, money's a good thing, I thought, in elections. I think Bernie's got some money in his campaign. I think Bernie has made money. He stopped saying millionaires as much because a lot of people know Bernie is a millionaire. So now he goes the billionaire road, which seems to, I guess, be friendlier to him. And everyone is just so afraid that Michael Bloomberg can write blank checks and buy certain things. And they seem to forget, a lot of the stuff that's gone on with Mr. Bloomberg. He has said a lot of things, stop and frisk being the thing that is the most discussed right now. Certainly, I think that a part of the voting public, the African-American vote that Donald Trump has done a much better job of getting than people give him credit for getting, is going to be a problem for several candidates. Pete Buttigieg, for whatever reason, has not done well there. He debates very, very well. But even Saturday Night Live seems to enjoy making fun of the fact that his supporters are almost entirely white supporters as of right now. And Michael Bloomberg is not going to fix that problem for the Democratic side of the aisle anytime soon because of that policy. He actually is going to hear from quite a few people telling him that he needs to do a lot to repair his image there. One of those people, of course, is Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton appeared this morning with Mika, and Mika was asking him those questions. What does he have to do? If anything, can he do, Michael Bloomberg, to repair that image, to pull back from the world that, stop and frisk was inherently racist, etc.? And Al didn't have the best of answers for, if you're on Team Bloomberg. So let's hear from Al.
I don't know what he can do either, but I think the challenge is that we can't just settle for a speech or a tour of speeches asking for forgiveness.
Right.
There ought to be some effort on his part, to say, and therefore I want to try and repair the damages done by this, some kind of criminal justice initiative, some kind of effort for those that were scarred. I also, Mika, don't want to see him as a leaf that the other candidates duck some of their racial baggage.
Yeah, I'm surprised to say that I kind of agree with Al Sharpton, and I think there's going to have to be a lot more that is done in order to repair the image on that side of the aisle. But that's not it. That's not the only group of people that Michael Bloomberg may have offended with his policies and or just his face, words, things he speaks out of his mouth, because he does quite a bit of that too. He has offended farmers, apparently, which obviously are a group that very much work well with Donald Trump, a group that you'd probably want to at least stay on the good graces of if you were to win on the other side and run against this president. But no, it doesn't seem like he's even succeeded there. Michael Bloomberg, this was a couple years ago, or I think in 2016, was at some sort of event and said very disparaging things about the challenges that come with farming. We have just a little bit of that from Twitter. This is Bloomberg talking about what it's like to be a farmer.
Anybody, even people in this room, so no offense intended, to be a farmer. It's a process. You dig a hole, you put a seed in, you put dirt on top, add water, up comes the corn. Then we had 300, you could learn that.
Yeah, apparently you can learn that. That's all it is. I don't think that it's good to belittle that profession if you're going to run for president of the United States, especially against someone who does so very well in respecting the things that farmers do. I don't know if Mr. Bloomberg has ever left New York City, ever been involved in any kind of world where, maybe someone has told him there's technology that exists in that industry, that they actually have had developments too. There's smart technology that even exists as far as if you become a farmer today. It's not put a seed in the ground, wait for it to grow, and then boom, make money. That's not, everyone doesn't make money the way you make money, Michael. We don't all do it that easily. You can't just, start any industry you want, have it work out completely well, and then be worth billions of dollars so you can go spend it however the heck you want to spend it. That's not how it works for everyone. And if he's going to actually win, which I still don't see as a viable, I honestly don't know who will. I don't, when you look at that side, when you look at the upcoming debates, Buttigieg performs the best in debates, in my opinion, but he might not have a longevity thing here because he's the mayor of South Bend. There's nothing else, by the way, that would be a problem for that candidate. I don't care what other things people complain about out in the world. The biggest complaint and the biggest hit, the biggest knock anyone can take against Pete Buttigieg in a debate is the guy has only been mayor of South Bend, and that's not exactly the biggest and most, spreading a giant metropolis place for you to gain a lot of experience. He hasn't done well there either. He's had a lot of policies within South Bend that have offended certain parts of that population, the parts of the population that seem to be so challenging for Democrats to get right now, which was not usually the case. The fact that two of the candidates that are being talked about so much would struggle to get an African-American vote is kind of crazy when you're talking about it on that side of the aisle. But anyway, you know what? Let me take a break. It's President's Day. We have a lot of other stuff going on. I don't mean a commercial, by the way. I don't want to scare my engineer. I'm going to keep going. I'm just going to get away from politics for a second because, you can have too much. I saw a study that I really liked. It said, and this is, I believe, out of the University of British Columbia. It's in Canada. It said, you know what? If you go on a trip sometime, if you're in a committed relationship, you've got a significant other, whoever, and you struggle to go to sleep on the road, it's a thing that can happen. You know what you need to do? Just bring along a dirty T-shirt. That's what they say. The smell of a loved one can help you fall asleep better, faster and stay asleep longer. The recommended move here, so you're at the hotel, you're ready to go, you're like, all right, I got to crash, I got a meeting in the morning. What do? You put the shirt around the pillow. You remove the pillowcase, or maybe don't, depending on the hotel you're in. You put this shirt on it, and then you just fall asleep on the dirty T-shirt. And it is the BO. Like, it's not the cologne, according to the study. It's the actual things that were created by the human that wore the shirt. Those are the things that comfort you as you go to sleep. I don't know if this means that I should, apologize to my wife. I don't know if I sweat a lot at night, and that's what eventually makes the brain just say, all right, I accept this. All right, I'm fine now. This is the scent I enjoy. But this study, and by the way, whoever thinks to, look this stuff up, they're like, you know what would be a cool study? Let's wrap an old shirt around a hotel pillow and see if people go to sleep better. And then the people who sign up for it, they're like, no, that's fine. I like that idea. But this is great. Apparently, it releases a bunch of the different endorphins. It gives you more melatonin. It allows you to sleep in a way that's completely natural, completely easy. And I have no idea if anyone in their right mind is going to take this advice and run with it. But if you're out there and you're like, I need to find a way to fall asleep better, apparently the best possible way is to just snag something out of the laundry right before you wash it and before you hit the road. One other thing that I thought was funny, this is another conversation that's being had, I think, on social media. Is it safe to drink old water? Some people just leave it out, right? Like you fill a glass, that's your water glass, and it just sits for days. Is it safe to drink that water is the question out there. And I really wonder what people think. It's not going to kill you. That's what the end result of this whole study is, but it's not necessarily the best possible move either. You sleep with the pillow from your loved one. You put the shirt around it. You fall asleep. You wake up in the morning and you drink your 3-day-old water, and you are ingesting a whole lot of bacteria. I don't think there's any coronavirus on said bacteria, but it's enough that you should probably reconsider and maybe clean out that item and get a new glass of water. So these are the bits of information I'm giving out on this President's Day. Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson, letting you know that the best way to fall asleep is dirty T-shirt, and the best thing to do with water is at least recycle it every couple days. I have more stuff to talk about, more political stuff. There's more comments and conversations going on as far as, I don't know, for whatever reason, Bloomberg being like the it kid of right now. Donald Trump was at NASCAR. You always love to see Donald doing something like that. He always jokes about wanting to drive the cars, and then he always takes a lap, which are things that I enjoy quite a bit. And NASCAR sure seems to love Mr. Trump. So those two sides, President Trump, those two sides are very much at, supporting each other. And anytime the president gets in front of a crowd that likes him, he usually goes a little rogue, has a little bit of fun with them. So maybe we'll hear from that and a whole lot more after this on The Chad Benson Show.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson on President's Day. Happy President's Day to you. I have some more political stuff. I can talk about Bernie Sanders. I can talk about pretty much anybody on either side of the aisle if you want. I do think that it's going to be a lot like what's currently going on, the impeachment trial, how it went. We knew the whole story the whole time. We knew that the House would do what it did. We knew that the Senate would do what it did. It was like going to Titanic. You know, you went in and you're like, okay, I heard this was a pretty good movie, but I do know what's going to happen at the end. I do know how this is going to go for everybody. As far as things, you didn't necessarily know that Leo wasn't going to be allowed to share the raft. But other than that, you knew how it was going. And that's the same thing. I feel like that's what's going to happen this entire campaign season. We are very aware that at some point one of the Democrats will step up, and then I don't think they'll do very well. So that's why it interests me a little less than maybe it should. This story out of Florida interests me a whole lot more. And I don't know what it is about Florida, and you'll hear this all the time. People will say the craziest news stories always happen in Florida all the time. People try to, fight alligators. It's just a thing. You wake up in the morning, you're like, man, it's nice outside. I'm in Florida. It might rain soon. What do I need to do? Something nuts. And this is what this guy did. 63-year-old guy driving around in Florida decides to try to pull over the guy in front of him, starts flashing his lights. And I guess all he wanted was directions. So he flashes the lights at the car in front of him. They both pull over to the side of the road. He gets out of the car. The guy's drunk, by the way, 63 years old, not doing so great, not really sure where he's going, and apparently doesn't know how to use his phone, which I feel bad. He would not have been in trouble legally if this 63-year-old man had just had a teenager in the car, someone that could have GPS'd for him. But anyway, he waddles up to the car in front of him. The guy rolls down the window and he goes, "Hey, man, just looking for directions to this place. Can you help me out?" The guy he pulled over was a cop. It was a cop car. The cop looks at him and goes, "Hey, man, I smell alcohol in your breath." And the guy goes, "Yeah, no, I've been drinking." So again, in Florida, the way that things happen is so different than anywhere else. The drunk driver pulled the cop over. And so then the cop said, "Well, I'm going to have to, arrest you for a DUI." And this is the quote of the story. The guy looked at him and said, "Hold on, wait a minute. You didn't pull me over. I pulled you over. I don't know. You can't arrest me. I'm allowed to go away." That's the rules of the road to this guy in Florida, apparently. If I pull the cop over, even though I'm going to blow a .137 way over the legal limit, and I'm going to be very much evidently intoxicated, that if you didn't know, it's not my fault. You got to leave me alone in this one, bud. I love that story. I love every part. You should not drink and drive. I hate that. But the fact that this is how it goes in Florida is just like the epitome of Florida. And I probably want to live there one day. I'm not disparaging it completely. It's a beautiful place to go. But the people there just seem insane. And usually, there's actually a pretty fun game you can do. I think you can do this on Twitter. You can do this with a Google search as well, just a news search. You put in your date of birth and Florida guy or Florida woman, and you find out what your Florida story is. You just put in your day of birth. For me, it's actually Halloween. And then you just do Halloween and Florida guy, and you see what the top result is. And then you have the number one story. And my top result is a Florida man that dressed as Trump at a fair. And that just happened in 2019. But there's always a new one all the time. You just keep scrolling down. Who is your Florida guy? Who is your Florida woman? Tweet that to the Chad Benson Show. He'll love it. He'll be like, "What did Craig do? Well, I was gone. Why am I getting all these tweets about Florida stories?" Tweet him your favorite. Tweet him the one that's on your birthday. It doesn't have to be the top result. Go rogue. Do what you want. At least a semi-political story that I saw and I also found interesting was these topless protesters at a Bernie rally. The guy's popular. He's not quite Donald Trump as far as rallies go, but I guess he's getting the rock star treatment a little bit now. And I have audio, but I don't really want to play it because the audio is just one woman snagging a microphone, and I guess they're upset with the milk industry. So the woman starts to complain about not holding up the dairy industry, not helping them. And Bernie's just like Bolton. The guy's getting as far to the side of the stage as he can go. And the woman is just saying stuff, and then her mic gets cut off. And so then a bunch of other supporters, a bunch of other protesters just start storming the stage. And I guess they're just like occupying the Bernie stage at that point. They're not really sharing a message anymore. And then my favorite part of the anti-dairy protesters that hang out at the Bernie rally is that for some reason, and maybe it's like Florida inspired, maybe the woman's from Florida, she just walks on the stage topless. There's no real explanation for it. There's nothing like written on it. There's no message to be sent to people. It's just a topless woman on a stage at a presidential campaign rally, and it's just the oddest thing. And again, maybe that's just like the way that the world works right now, is that Bernie Sanders is the kind of guy that can attract whatever supporter he's looking for. And then someone like a Michael Bloomberg, who hasn't done the rallies yet, I have no word yet on exactly how many topless people will be appearing at an upcoming rally for a Michael Bloomberg, but you got at least one in the Bernie Sanders world, which might surprise a lot of people, certainly surprised me a little bit, but that is the kind of thing going on. I just have to know where she's from. I really need to know, like, where did she come from specifically? Because if it's Florida, I win for the day. I get the full-on, 100 points. I pass go. I get $200 because it just feels like that's the most likely thing that she had to be from there. All right, one other thing, actually, before I go, because I know I got a break here soon. But this thing has gone viral for whatever reason. A woman was very upset on a plane recently. There's a video that's out there. I think it's on social media predominantly. She's on an American flight, and she's recording this guy behind her just punching her chair. Just a jerk of a person, just punching her chair. She's very mad. Her name is Wendy Williams, not anyone else. She's from Virginia, Wendy Williams. She's on an American flight going to New Orleans, Charlotte. From New Orleans, to Charlotte. She reclines her seat back, and the guy behind, who I guess was just in the last row, just wasn't having it. I don't know if that was, again, maybe this guy's also from Florida, no word yet. But it was just not his day. Maybe he woke up, he had a bad morning, he didn't bring along his T-shirt from his spouse so he could smell it as he fell asleep. He had a bad day in New Orleans, flying back to Charlotte. This woman reclines back, and he's like, I'm done. This is the last moment. I'm turning into Jackie Chan for a second, and I'm punching the heck out of this chair. But this has gone viral. After American Airlines, I guess, didn't do quite enough to help out this woman, though, she has now started to get very upset. There might be a court case about this. There might be a court case because someone got on a plane, reclined a seat back, and got punched in the chair. I can't even say it with a totally straight face. I love it. Punched. Look, he was wrong. He's a jerk. He's an idiot. They should have told him to stop for sure, and she shouldn't have been like chair punched the whole time. That's not a new feature of an American flight, I don't think. I don't think you get the massage via punches, but she might sue. It's ridiculous. The whole thing. This is the world we live in, people. 2020. I don't know if everybody's drinking Florida water. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe they're sharing too much of it. You got to check where your water's from real quick because it might be from places that make us insane. Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson. A lot more coming up.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Happy President's Day. Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson today. Thrilled to be with you guys. Thrilled to be here for the day. I'm talking about a whole lot of stuff today. We'll be talking as much as we can about Michael Bloomberg, who seems to be the new white knight of the Democratic Party. At least he's got the cash to be threatening. So there's going to be a lot more talk about him. He's planning for Super Tuesday, by the way. The guy's got 0 delegates right now, and yet still he's scaring people like Bernie Sanders. There is no clear nominee on that side, so that's a thing going on. The president, of course, has been talking a lot about quite a few different things. He's been having to address his Twitter, thanks to Will Barr. He's been having to talk a lot more about Roger Stone and what's been going on that's odd there compared to McCabe, et cetera, and how the whole process is with all that. A lot of things are going on, but someone that maybe we haven't heard from in a few days, someone that is also usually making the rounds in this world is Nancy Pelosi. And if you don't remember, which I can't imagine you don't, but Nancy ripping up those papers was a statement she decided to make, a statement that was, her thing to do. So we have quite a few things, quite a few bits of piece of information from one Pelosi. Let's start it off, Nancy.
This is an abuse of power that the president is again trying to manipulate federal law enforcement to serve his political interest. This all must be investigated.
More things to investigate. Do you think they'll impeach him again? I've been asking that question to some friends of mine, and I'm asking, quite honestly. President Trump gets reelected. You already heard that people didn't testify. Things didn't go the way they should in the Senate. I don't know when and how they eventually, I guess, years later, probably try to get enough control to do the whole thing. And they probably won't, by the way. I'm not expecting all of a sudden there to be a large majority in both the House and the Senate in the next couple years. But we're down the road. Do you think, with everything that's gone on and everything that could go on, that there's another discovery, there's another report? What do 4 more years of Trump look like with a Nancy Pelosi still very much talking and investigating anything she can? Do we see that as being, rip up a speech, do this? You remember the sideways clap from the previous year? She is inventive. I will give her that. There is a way that she gets attention from behind this man every so often that at least, I certainly dislike the disrespect of ripping up a speech that a president gives. It doesn't really make you look like someone that doesn't hate the guy, right? Because as the whole thing's going on, as we're going through impeachment, everyone's saying that they have to do it. It's not about hating the guy. It's about, just honoring the Constitution or doing whatever you can. And then the guy doesn't get impeached because, again, like Titanic, we all knew how the ending was going to go. And she rips up a speech that he gives. And she's like, yeah, got him anyway. Although I did have a friend make a joke to me that I thought was pretty good. Back when he gave that speech, back when that happened, it would be akin, the fact that they tried to impeach the guy and failed. A good example for something similar would be if you got fired at a job, you're talking to the boss, getting canned, and then accidentally the rest of the office staff bursts in for your birthday. They start celebrating the birthday party. They maybe even ask you to give you a speech. And the boss, she's not the boss, by the way, but in this analogy, Nancy Pelosi's sitting there thinking, when do I get back to firing this guy? When does the birthday stop? And that's why I guess you rip up the papers. I thought that was a pretty good analogy, but then Nancy went on. She's talking to Christiana Amanpour about quite a few things. Nancy.
Now, I'm a speed reader, so I was reading ahead. I knew I was there. And it got past like about a third of it, and I thought, this is terrible. I realized that almost every page had something in it that was objectionable. So it wasn't a planned thing. It seems that if you want to get press, you have to get attention. So I thought, well, let's get attention on the fact that what he said here today was not true.
I'm confused. I'm confused because you can't in the same sentence say that it was not a planned thing, but she's very aware that to get press, you got to get attention. And she thinks that she's a speed reader. I like that. Do you remember taking those classes? Did anyone do that in school? I remember like 3rd, 4th grade, they let you take your finger, and your middle finger sticks out just a little bit, usually over the other ones. So that's how you trace the page. This is how you speed read. I'm not kidding. I'm aware of this. I don't know why I'm sharing it now, but it's happening. We're all going to live there. You let the words one at a time pass over with your finger, and you're just supposed to kind of scan the sheet page by page, word by word with your hand, and you might digest 50%, 30%, some amount, but you're supposed to get the basic gist. That is the idea of speed reading. It's not just that you read fast, but when you truly speed read, you're not reading every word. You're trying to get the main point of an idea. And so Nancy, in her story, is sitting there doing this. She's scanning through the page, and then she's like, you know what? I need to get attention. Well, how can I get attention? Like, this is the internal dialogue. How could you get attention, Miss Nancy? You know what you should do? You should do something to this speech that to you is all full of lies. But what could we do? What could we possibly do? Can we sideways clap with the speech in between our hands? No, that's not a good idea. Let's do something different. Let's rip it up this time and see what happens. Of course it was planned. Of course she went into it assuming that she would disagree with the main message, and she wanted to do whatever she could to, as she said, get attention. So that attention is to rip up the speech. But Nancy, you're not done. Keep chatting.
He was acquitted. His poll ratings are high.
There was no acquittal. You can't have an acquittal unless you have a trial. And you can have a trial and you have witnesses and documents. So he can say he's acquitted, and the headlines can say acquitted, but he's impeached.
See, this is again. I think that's why the analogy is so good from a buddy of mine. That it's like if you burst in during a firing and tried to celebrate a birthday for somebody, it would make the boss very upset. And Nancy is very upset at the way that whole thing went. I mean, not to devolve back into it and talk about it, but it was just crazy the way that I still say right now that the thing about witnesses, the thing about being upset that more people didn't testify, et cetera, whatever, could have been fixed in the House. If they had wanted to hear from more people, they could have slowed down the trial. Yes, you would have had to go through the court system and do that stuff. But if it was so important, Nancy, to actually hear what everyone wanted to say, you just had to make them speak. And you have the power to do it. Even with the president, even with the White House saying no and pushing back and saying it's all ridiculous and stupid to go through it, you could have done a multiple months long hearing, and you could have done a whole lot more to actually get the facts you think exist before going and sending it on up to the Senate. Instead, what did you do? You rushed the entire thing in the House because you knew you had the votes, and then you held on to it, which was my favorite part, is that, you're like, all right, we need to get this done quick. It's important for the Constitution. We gotta make sure to get this guy out. And then, you know what? No. I'm going to wait. I got to go to Starbucks. I got to do some stuff. I've got chores to do around the house. I'm sending those articles eventually. And then the articles eventually do get sent because you realize, Nancy, you can't control the Senate. You might want to, but you can't. The Senate does its thing, decides that he is acquitted, that he is not guilty, that it's over, and that he will not be removed from office. And now you're saying you needed a trial that you didn't get. I just don't understand the messaging on that side of the aisle as much as I wish I did. Where do we think the win is there? If you had to be someone to advise these people, is that the win? And then actually, I made this joke earlier in the show, and I'd love to keep talking about it. Michael Bloomberg, shifting gears completely, is a guy that's got a whole lot of money. He's one of the richest people in the world. So if he drops, say, $1 billion on his campaign, it's not going to mean much to him. He's not going to bat an eyelash. His lifestyle isn't going to change. Even his passed down legacy, everyone will be fine in the Bloomberg family. And yet, just like I question the message from a Nancy, the ripping up, the moves there, I do question the value in spending that amount of money. And with all the things about to come out of the woodwork from this guy, all the ways in which he's crapped on farmers and stop and frisk makes him look really bad to one of the core audiences he needs to attract. I mean, there's just so many layers to the onion that is Michael Bloomberg that you peel back and say, all right, this guy's not. It's like Biden. Right now, Biden is a hilarious situation, in my opinion. My opinion, he's hilarious because the guy, while doing poorly, not getting anywhere near the support that anyone on the Democratic side would have loved for him to get, loved for him to just run away with it, and not being supported by the own president that he seems to name drop all the time. Obama has not come to his aid. He's not a guy that's out there on the campaign trail with him saying things for him, which should say enough about this guy, that the Obamas aren't even willing to throw their hat in the ring for a Joe Biden. But he just continues to make mistakes. And I know that I said it way before we had any results. I know I've been talking about it for quite a while, but Joe Biden is a walking mistake. When he said the other day that thing to the woman, he quoted some movie, and he does it in a way that's just so stupid, where he responds back to her not obviously going to something by making what just, if you read it word for word, is the stupidest thing. I don't understand Joe Biden, and obviously the voters on that side don't understand a Joe Biden, and he's still hanging. He's still hanging in there because he wants to, but he should just give up. He's the kind of guy that's also complicating their side. If more of the people withdrew at this point, if Warren and Biden decided, you know what, it's not going to go our way, it's not looking great, we need to unite around a candidate, they might have more of a shot. They wouldn't beat Trump, but at least to not be a laughingstock in all this, not have whatever happened in Iowa as well be just an issue out there for the world to see. That was strange, but Biden saying that someone is a lying, dog-faced pony soldier is just... How do you expect that guy to be president? How in any world does that guy eventually rise up and do it? So now Bloomberg steps in. He's now the one we're going to, and Klobuchar too, I guess, after the results in New Hampshire might have a shot on their side. You never know. You never know how things can snowball whenever they go. But Bloomberg steps in. He's the new Biden, and he will have just as many mistakes coming out of the closet. Just as many saying that farming isn't hard, that anybody can do it. Just plant a seed in the ground and boom, you got money. I mean, that's not the whole process there. And I hate to tell him that. I hate to tell Michael Bloomberg that he probably wants the farmers to like him. But there's just so many different things that he's done over the years being mayor of New York that even when he won, way back when he first won that seat, people said it was like the perfect circumstance of things. And yes, he had a whole bunch of money, but money alone will not win him an election. Eventually, people will care about the thoughts, the things that he can and can't do for our country, and he's just not the same. Look, before I get out of here, though, there's one other thing. I got to take a break soon. One other thing I loved. So President Trump went to Daytona. He went to the Daytona 500. NASCAR fans love President Trump. President Trump loves NASCAR, so it's a perfect mix. The, jet is flying over NASCAR, and people are getting excited. He comes down and talks to them. It was a heck of a thing. I have audio from Fox talking about the fans. Someone was interviewing the fans and seeing how excited they were, and they do not disappoint. These people were stoked to hear from their president.
It was exhilarating to have him so close. I mean, I love Trump. He's awesome. He's like my hero, so it was just incredible to have him so close.
I loved it. I think it's great that he's out here.
What could you tell about the energy in the crowd when the president was announced and introduced?
Well, it started when the Air Force One flew by and everybody saw the jet, and it just started, and you could feel the crowd energy pick up. I got chills.
What did you think about having the president here?
Awesome. It was awesome.
It was magnificent. Oh my God, what a great jet. I mean, it was awesome. Everybody stood up. We all cheered. This is huge. I've never seen a president come to NASCAR in all the years we've been watching. This is awesome.
Big fans. Huge. The whole thing was huge. President Trump drops in on NASCAR, and everybody is so very, very excited, which was just another smart thing for him to do. He's very smart with how he runs his campaign. He runs his election. He's an incredible debater. He will do a great job debating. The only person that I might be interested in seeing him debate, this is honest, the only person that I might see as formidable in that world has been Pete Buttigieg. The guy is tremendous on the debate stage. That you can't lie. He does a great job. He's very articulate. So in that one world, it might be interesting to see them go toe-to-toe and see what they would say to each other. But other than him, every other candidate on the Democratic side of the aisle seems to make a lot of mistakes. Maybe Amy Klobuchar, and she did well in the last one, so we'll see how that goes. But I think as far as debate goes, as far as the way you run the campaign, and this even goes to what we've been talking about, what people are discussing a lot right now, the way that Trump uses social media. President Trump tweets more things negative about people that like him. He doesn't really care. He'll tweet about anyone. He'll go after anything he disagrees with. It makes people very upset, but at the same time, look how he's doing. It doesn't seem to be hurting him overall. All right, like I said, got to take a break. A lot more coming up. Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson. He's back tomorrow. I'll talk to you in a minute.
Chad Benson Show, the only place so far that the Mueller investigation hasn't deep probed for collusion.
Stay tuned.
This is Chad Benson.
Craig Collins in on President's Day for Chad Benson, hanging out with you guys today. Chad is back tomorrow. Shifting gears for a little bit. I'll talk a lot of politics today, but every so often you need a what I call like a nice little palate cleanser. This palate cleanser is via emoji. There's 117 new emojis coming out. People weighing in on how excited they are with all the different emojis. I have a photo. Maybe I'll try to share it on the social media pages of all the different emojis, that are coming out in the next few days. Or maybe by the end of 2020, I guess we're going to see all of them. But there's a lot of kind of ridiculous ones. There's a lot of ones that are interesting to me. The Groucho Marx one is maybe one of my favorites. It's just a smiley face that looks like Groucho Marx, got the typical glasses, the big eyebrows, the mustache, etc. There's a whole bunch of different options for Santa, for a bunch of different characters there. There's a bunch of new animal emojis. There's just a bunch of things that will be coming out. There's a pinched finger emoji, I guess, if you want to say just a little bit of something. There's a ninja, which for whatever reason is making a lot of people happy. The least popular emojis, I actually have that story in front of me too. 5 of these new emojis, people have already said, we don't need these. We have enough in our life. Do you have anyone in your family, by the way, that speaks via just emoji? Is there anyone that most of the text, and they don't answer the phone, by the way, none of the people who text predominantly via emoji are capable of answering the telephone. I don't think it's a thing they can do. I think if it vibrates and or rings, they look at it confused and just put it down and just wait for it to stop so they can text someone, what did you just do to my phone? But the least 5, people are not excited about the elevator, not excited about a sign on a wooden post, a bucket, a screwdriver, and a hook. And the reason I even bring any of this up is I'm still fascinated that Vermont is going to allow people to put emojis on their license plates. And now apparently have 117 additional options. If you live in Vermont and you love emojis, you can have a full emoji license plate that'll include whatever you need it to include. Maybe a pitched finger, I don't know. As many things as you need. It's all out there, and it's available to you very, very soon. This is Craig Collins. I'm filling in on the Chad Benson Show today. Happy President's Day to everybody out there. We're going to talk more Michael Bloomberg. We're going to talk more Bernie Sanders. We're going to hit a lot of other topics. And then maybe every so often, I'll just put an emoji on Chad's Facebook. All right, talk to you in a minute.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson today. Happy President's Day to everybody out there. Happy President's Day to the President. He's doing quite well. He visited Nascar. He's having fun. People really, really seem to love him. One thing that I thought was interesting, I saw this just now, and I like it a lot. Apparently, the betting odds are a thing that's always in flux on the Democratic side of the aisle. People want to know who to throw some money on. If you right now were going to bet on who the eventual nominee is to go against President Trump, who would you think it is? At this very moment, would you go Sanders? Is that the road you'd go? Betting odds are good for him. He's leading the pack there. 39% say that he's got a good shot at being the nominee. But then the next highest one, the odds are next best for Michael Bloomberg already, a guy who's appeared in 0 debates, although he will probably be debating on Wednesday, a guy who has 0 delegates, a guy who's done 0 things outside of, I think, do social media during those debates. That's the biggest thing he's done so far. He has social media'd the debates, and yet he is right now the second person in the betting odds. Buttigieg a far third at 11%. Biden's still at 10, by the way, because Biden is very hopeful that by the time they get to South Carolina, that things turn around hard for him. And if they don't, I eventually think waves to everybody and says, I'm done. But if nothing else demonstrates the strength that is assumed to go in Michael Bloomberg's way on that side of the aisle, it is the fact that now the betting odds place him a very close to Sanders second as far as this thing goes. And I actually do have audio of Sanders. We have two little clips from Bernie talking about what essentially is, I think, fear. Like, you're going to hear him say that, we don't like billionaires and you can't buy elections and all this stuff that, Bernie says. Bernie Sanders, by the way, is a millionaire. But in these two clips, what's most interesting to me is the fact that there's already, I think, fear. Fear is already something that for sure exists on that side of the aisle. Let's hear him real quick. The first one from Bernie.
You buy the presidency, at least he's going to try to buy the presidency, by spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on TV ads.
Yeah. That is the thing he's going to do. He's going to spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, probably up to $1 billion. I think that he's offered to spend $1 billion on him and or whoever actually gets the nomination that then campaigns, obviously, against the current president. The course of the entire campaign, both campaigns, he has pledged to spend $1 billion. I feel like I should do that with like a Dr. Evil voice. But no, let's hear a little more from Bernie.
I got news from Mr. Bloomberg, and that is the American people are sick and tired of billionaires buying elections.
I don't know about that. Money is usually a pretty good thing. But it's just funny that they're afraid of the money and just the money, to be totally honest, because as I've said throughout this show, there's a lot of things that will come out of the woodshed as far as a Bloomberg is concerned. A lot of Biden-esque mistakes have been made, and they are not going to help him at all. He is not going to do well based on these Biden mistakes. And yet, the immediate fear is there just because the guy's got so much cash. And then at the same time, on the debate stage, you rip on a Pete Buttigieg for getting money from, very rich people, but then you're afraid of money. I don't understand the process here. You can't want money for your campaign, but you only want it from a certain subset of individuals. But then if somebody comes in who has their own, because you can't even rip on him. That's the thing that's different about Bloomberg as far as the people go on this side of the aisle. You can't actually make fun of his campaign financial size, because unlike anyone else that's gotten money from quote-unquote bad people, quote-unquote billionaires and millionaires, he just is spending his own. He's just flushing his own money down the toilet. And so in that world, you can't even go after him that way. So maybe that's why people are so very, very afraid of him. I don't know. But it's definitely something that's out there. I want to shift gears. This is something I didn't even prep my producer on, so I'm going to give her a little bit of time to find it. But there is some audio from Mark Short. Mark was he is Pence's chief of staff, and he was talking about quite a few different things. He's talking about the whole Barr Stone thing. He was talking about the frustrations that Donald Trump has had, et cetera. It's some very good audio in this conversation. Mark has obviously opinions that side with the president, but at the same time as, going through all this stuff and discussing how things are a little weird, a little different, you realize that, okay, maybe William Barr is pushing against something he shouldn't be pushing against. Let's hear from Mark.
I think that the president's frustration is one that a lot of Americans have, which feels like the scales of justice are not balanced anymore. That when someone like Roger Stone gets a prosecution that suggests a 9-year jail sentence, which is 4 years above the sentencing guidelines. And candidly, someone like Andy McCabe, who also lied to federal investigators, gets a lucrative contract here at CNN. People say, how is this fair? And how is it equitable? And I think that's the president's frustration.
Yeah, and to respond real quickly to the Andrew McCabe stuff, it is abundantly confusing. Anyone out there right now is like, how did this? And I have heard that it might have been a botched process from the start, that there might be some level of, and I get it, I think that a lot of stuff is corrupt and crap anyway, so I totally understand if this is not 100% true, but I have seen some people saying that had they done this better, had the process been followed more correctly, that there's a chance that maybe it would have ended differently. But it's just very strange to see it go down the road, two very different roads, obviously, for very, as President Trump even says, like, what did Roger exactly do again? What do we know? What information do we have exactly? Because we'd love to understand that as best we can. And right now, maybe we don't understand it as best we can. And at the same time, Andrew, he's fine. He's a good guy. Don't worry about him so much. Let's hear more from Mark.
What we've seen again and again is that the Department of Justice has been politicized, and Attorney General Barr is trying to correct that. Normally what would happen in a case like Roger Stone's is if somebody's asked for a sentence that is 4 years above the sentencing guidelines, it goes up the chain to say, here's why I'm suggesting that. Once that happened, Barr took it back and said, no, that's to be excessive. But I think there's concern about a lot of people who knew that the Mueller probe was a fraudulent probe.
Yeah. Let's say, you know what, just go ahead. Let's hear the third thing from Mark.
President continued to tweet. He tweeted about the Justice Department's decision not to prosecute Andy McCabe and asserted his right to intervene in criminal cases. So why isn't the president listening to his attorney general?
The president has been able to communicate directly with the American people through a social media outlet. It is something that helped propel him to the presidency. It's one of the things that the American people love about him is they can communicate directly with him. He's going to keep doing it. It's what he's done from the beginning, and I think it's a very effective way for him to communicate with the American people.
I have to be very honest. When you hear some people like a Barr say they don't like the way the president tweets, is it because they don't really get Twitter? Like, I don't know that that's the best of the takes, but it's my curiosity. Every so often when someone's like, what's this social media thing that the president always weighs in on? He says stuff on there all the time. I don't get it. How do I find it on my phone? I wonder if that's part of the problem. Is there like a Luddite issue going on here, or is it just people being very upset? And I get it. Look. Again, I want to make sure that this is clear because I've been talking about this a lot today. I don't necessarily think it's good that our current president tweets as much as he does. I agree with all the people on his side of the aisle that said they'd love it if he could pull back a little more. But it absolutely is a way that people get to know him better, and the people that support him like getting to know him as much as they can. They like hearing from him. They like knowing what his opinions are all the time. He has the ability to do it. This guy is a reality TV star as well as the current president of the United States. He's someone who did tremendously well in business in New York. This is a guy that's not really afraid of anyone telling him what to do. And so when even a William Barr goes out there and says, I don't like this, I don't like how this is going, and I know we have that audio too, maybe we should play that in a second, but when that's going on, when people are objecting to, the way in which he's doing stuff, but it's been so effective for the entirety of his presidential run and his campaign, etc., the social media moves that he's made have benefited him. Is there a point where we all call off the dogs? Is there a point where everyone just says, all right, you know what? I don't like the way this is going, but obviously it's not hurting the guy. He's definitely, he's impossible. You can't hurt him. Even when he does misstep, he somehow seems to get around it because he just can. He's just adept at doing it. So really, we just have to live in this world where anyone that works with him, for him, etc., accepts the fact that he does these things. William Barr, not exactly one of those people, usually on his side, but not in the camp yet that he can get tweeted about as well. Let's hear from William.
I cannot do my job here at the department with a constant background commentary that undercuts me.
You're going to have to. That's what I'm going to keep saying every time I hear that clip, is you're going to have to. And again, not saying that I support the fact that it's going on, just want to be crystal clear. And I want to say it as many times as I can, but at the same time, it's not stopping. And why would it? In all honesty, if you were the president of the United States, if you're Donald Trump, and you see how well you're doing, you see that your approval rating is higher than Obama's was, you see the turnout at these primaries, people voting for him and just as much as they can trying to support this guy in a situation where you don't need to do that. You don't need to go to your primary and vote for him. I'm not telling you not to. Do it. Everybody should do it if you want to do it, but it's not important, and yet it's happening because people love this guy. They love him, and this is one of the reasons why. William, do you have anything else to say?
To have public statements and tweets made about the department, about our people in the department, our men and women here, about cases pending in the department, and about judges before whom we have cases, make it impossible for me to do my job and to assure the courts and the prosecutors in the department that we're doing our work with integrity.
Well, again, and I get the challenge. I wonder if you were talking to him. Like, again, let's put this in a workplace. Let's say that William Barr and Donald Trump are both in the same workplace, and William Barr goes and makes a complaint, and so someone has to go to William and be like, "Hey, look, man, like I think we're going to keep doing that. I think that's going to keep happening. I know that you don't want it to happen. I hear what you're saying, that it's making your job harder. I get it. I feel you. I understand the issue, but we're not going to be able to do what you want us to do. So you're going to have to go back to work if that's what you want to do. If you don't want to go back to work, we're unfortunately going to have to find somebody else to do it. We want you. We like you. You've been great. But if you can't get past this issue, we're sorry. It's not going to work out for everyone involved." That's the situation I think we're in right now. That's the situation that I think he needs to accept that we're in. And then eventually maybe we move on to something else. And we can talk about Roger Stone. We can talk in depth about how the issue, and the fact that the thing that he impeded, the investigation that he delayed, is one that really wound up being crap on its own anyway. So there's a lot of issues there. There's a lot of interesting things. And, of course, the president will support people that he thinks are being wronged. It's something that he's very much done, and he will support them publicly. And he will talk about the people that are wronging them, even if it's people who've supported him as well, even if it's people involved in situations where he's, on the same bar. That's funny. On the same page with them most of the time. He's still not completely safe. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's just jarring when you do as much as you do to support the guy and then you misstep a little and he calls you out for it and you're like, oh, wait a minute. We can all be in this world? Yes, you all can. This is the Craig Collins Show. It is President's Day. Happy President's Day to everybody. Chad is back tomorrow. Coming up after a quick break, I got a lot more non-political stuff for you guys. But first this, and then more me.
Check out our Chad Benson Show Facebook page where you can hang out or hang your grievances out to dry. This is Chad Benson.
Actually, it's Craig Collins. I'm filling in for Chad today. Chad is back tomorrow. Happy President's Day to everybody out there. So let's shift gears from the political stuff that we're talking about and talk about something way more positive, way more uplifting. Let's go to China and the coronavirus. I saw two stories, updates today. As far as that goes, the first one's scary. Are you scared? I mean, no one in America has died from this disease. 5 people have died outside of China, and the death toll actually added 105 new deaths as of Monday. And I guess cases went up by a little bit, about 2,048 new cases of the coronavirus, which I guess there were days of decline. We're assuming as temperatures get nicer and everyone, ushers into spring and or summer, that this will go away. I have heard that it could come back next year. Also, Americans have finally been brought home that were on cruise ships. They're being brought into the country. They are being, quarantined and kept as safe as possible. And there's a whole lot of infections from people on cruise ships. But right now, at least, it seems like maybe it's under control here locally. But every so often, you see that information out of China, and it does not seem under control there. The latest headline I saw that was interesting is the central bank is destroying money and or trying to clean money of the virus in hotspot areas. This says, according to the report, they have been doing everything they can. They've actually removed $1.1 billion US dollars worth of yen throughout the area. They've cleaned another $1 billion or so dollars. They've added $3 billion new into the economy. But what they're doing, I guess, is kind of interesting. They're either deeming some areas to be too dangerous and the money has to go, or they're locking it up. And I quote from one of the people involved, "Money with key virus hit areas will be sanitized with ultraviolet rays of heated that are heated and then locked up for 14 days before it is distributed again. Would you be thrilled if you, and I know you wouldn't know, I know there'd be no kind of indicator on it, but if your money in your country had been potentially deemed capable enough of getting you sick, getting you scarily sick, and then it got cleaned for 14 days, would you feel good about it? Would you feel great about the fact that it's back in the world? I mean, I think it's probably safer and crazy if you just get rid of it and delete it, but that's what's going on right now. COVID-19 is, I guess, slowing, but still a very scary thing, as yet another death occurred outside of China, the 5th death. So nothing has happened here in the United States yet. People that have the virus have been getting over it. So we've been doing well, but it scares me. I remember the first report on this thing and talking about it and thinking that, even though it seems ridiculous to be scared at all, even just a little bit by it, maybe not. And I actually I think shared something on social media. A guy got on a plane, and granted, the CEO for the company, but the guy got on a plane and put a little personal tent on himself. It's a little see-through kind of plastic thing, and it's a tent for one, and you can wear it, you can walk around with it. The guy's the CEO of the company that makes it, but he took a flight wearing one. I put it up on my social media asking if that was too much, if, that level of protection is unnecessary, and almost everyone that reacted said no, they do it too. So you say that we're not afraid. You say that it's ridiculous to be afraid. The odds are terrible of any of us being at risk. And then you demonstrate that some guy wears a giant tent on a flight, and everybody's like, nah, we're cool. We're good. I do it too. And now they're burning cash in China. This is, wow. I hope it ends soon, of course, but it just seems like there's more and more information out of there, and we never know with that country what they could be hiding. What else could be, next? Maybe in a month we find out a bunch of different information. But that's the latest out of China. Thank you for them for keeping us updated. This is Craig Collins. I'm filling in on President's Day for Chad Benson. I will be here all day today. After me, though, you get back to Chad tomorrow. Probably not talking as much emojis as I talk, but I'd love it if you share some of the new emojis, your favorite new emoji on the Chad Benson Facebook page. That would be hilarious to me. I've asked for 2 things. Listeners of his show, you need to go to the page and put up your favorite Florida man story. Maybe Google Florida man and your birthday and see what yours is, and then also throw up your favorite new emoji. He will be so confused when he comes back. All right, more Craig Collins Show, or more Chad Benson Show, here in a minute.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson today. Happy President's Day to everyone. Chad is back tomorrow. I have waited throughout the show to hit on Michael Avenatti. I should have done it sooner, but I had to be reminded, actually, sadly, that things are ridiculous for this man. And you always remember that this guy, it's ridiculous. The first thing, I'm stumbling on how to say it, the first thing is how funny it is to think back to what everyone thought of him a little while ago. The creepy porn lawyer at one point was supposed to be the next. He was going to be the candidate. People were saying that they thought, Michael Avenatti should run. He should be president of the United States. This guy is great. Well, he has been found guilty of wire fraud and extortion because of the whole Nike scandal. He's, just a crazy person. He wanted like $25 million from Nike. He is the worst of the worst, and yet he was all over everywhere. He was everywhere he could possibly be, as many times as he could possibly be there. I think I saw a story that over the course of like a year, he was on television, including all the cable channels as well as all like the other things, about 400 times. Some ridiculous amount of times he made some appearance somewhere talking about either one of the cases he found or just, how he's obviously a much better person than Donald Trump. And, things have not turned out so great for him. One of the things I thought that was really funny, actually, was Brian Stelter on CNN had a conversation with a couple of his guests, and we'll just play a little bit of this audio. But he was talking to them, and he actually asked the question. He's like, was I dumb to support Michael Avenatti? Was that stupid? And they, of course, defend the guy, by the way. Somehow this is Trump's fault. I crap you not. That's what happened. But let's hear a little bit from Brian and his buddies.
Let me ask you real quick while I have you. Michael Avenatti is back in the news. The swamp is not just about Trump figures. I feel like there are so many other figures that are part of the swamp. Avenatti has just been convicted on 3 counts for alleged extortion and other crimes. I've been getting some grief from Sean Hannity this weekend, speaking of Fox, right? From Hannity for once suggesting that I thought Avenatti could be a serious candidate for president. So give me a media critique. Was that stupid on my part? What do you make of how Avenatti was covered by CNN and MSNBC?
Well, I think one of the weird and in many cases distressing things that Trump has done is basically to Trumpify his opposition as well. And you see this very often in the conspiratorial mindset that many of his detractors take online. And I think that bore itself out in the phenomenon of Michael Avenatti as well.
Oh,
this was a guy who in many ways was very similar to
merciful.
Trump. He really knew
what is happening
to operate in the modern media environment.
Right.
And I think that's what really drew a lot of Trump's critics to him, was this idea that
okay. I don't need any more. I don't need any more of that, because I can't imagine anyone else in the world answering the question that way other than the people that were on that panel with that man. Was I stupid to support Avenatti, a guy who is now a convicted criminal? Was I stupid to support him, to say that I think he would have made a good president back when we knew very little about him and just thought that he was saying things that we liked? Was that dumb? The answer was yes. It was stupid. And more importantly, when he says the way that CNN and MSNBC covered this guy, was that dumb? Yes. Yes, it was. If you want anyone to ever think you're a real news organization, ever, to take away from those, knocks that like this is all crap, I have a couple suggestions. First, don't make everything breaking news. Just get rid of the breaking news thing at the bottom of your TV station, that every single day, every single story is breaking forever, that nothing is ever not breaking. Everything is always breaking. That's option 1. Option 2, vet the people you talk about just a tad more. Just do a little more research. Maybe interview a couple people that don't like the person and see, what's the general consensus on this guy before you do things like parade him around as the next possible president of the United States, your favorite guy, the guy that's going to do everything he can to take down the evil Donald Trump, according to a CNN or an MSNBC. I love it. I love that question got asked and that the answer, Trumpify, was in the answer. Somehow this guy is responsible for everyone loving some terrible person. How does that make any sense? I mean, honestly, in like your own life, if you got mad at somebody and they tried to blame somebody else for a dumb thing they did, or in this case, an illegal, prisonable, horrible thing that they did, would you be like, I accept that. I accept that it's not your fault at all, that this guy is totally innocent, that we're all innocent for supporting him, and that the only bad guy is this one evil villain that we need to somehow try to impeach again, because it's going to work out next time. That's I think for sure the way that their brains are working right now. I love watching it. I love seeing it. I just saw this story. I found it fairly interesting, mostly because I don't really understand if it's good or not. I think that's my real question. Robert Pattinson is a guy that you probably don't hear about a lot. He is the new Batman. They put out a video recently. You got to see him with his little mask on, kind of, and people are excited maybe about it. He did an interview with Allure magazine, and they asked him, several different questions. You go rogue in some of these interviews, and I guess somehow it came up, like, what does he smell like? I can't even imagine asking that question to a guy. Like, hey, just out of curiosity, man, like, Monday through Friday, what do you smell like? And his answer was stranger, but maybe it's because of the question itself. Robert Pattinson said, lots of people tell me I smell like a crayon. No specificity. I don't know if crayons have different scents to them. And the interviewer said, like you're made of wax? And he said, the new Batman was like, yeah, like I'm embalmed or something. And then that was it. It just kind of hung there. Does he think people are going to, like, like that about him? Does he think that's an attractive scent? I've never asked a woman if she liked the scent of crayon. I never asked her if like we make a new, kind of cologne, and should we go crayon scented? Because apparently we would smell like the new Batman. I just love the fact that question would come up. The guy would be asked, and his answer would be, yeah, no, I think this is pretty cool. I smell like, do crayons smell good? It's not like the Scenty marker. Like, at least if he smelled like Scenty marker, it might be a little bit cooler to some. But no, he smells like a crayon, and he's very proud of it to bring it. I don't think I'd admit that. If I were asked the question, I think I would just plead the fifth and wait for them to figure it out on their own. I would have no answer to what I smell like because I don't want to tell you that it's a crayon. Moving on, there's another story that I thought was very interesting, very far from the political spectrum. We'll get back. Don't worry, we'll get back. There's a lot of news going on. Bernie Sanders says things. Michael Bloomberg says things. A lot of people say things. I'll play it, but give me a few minutes to not. A study found that facial expressions, which are generally considered to give you a reliable take on what a person is actually thinking. If you ever had a conversation with someone and they say one thing, but their face says something different, a majority of us, I think, believe that we detected, like, okay, something else is going on here. I figured it out. But a new study out of Ohio State University has demonstrated that that's not really true. The question was asked, can we truly detect emotions from just a facial expression of itself? And the basic conclusion from this study is no, not at all. He described the technology used by many companies to assess facial muscle movements, etc., as completely crap. Anyone out there that says that they have some sort of technology that can figure out whether or not you're lying based on what your face does is just not at all accurate, according to Professor Martinez, who led this study. He analyzed 4 million facial expressions from 35 different countries. He found that the attempts to define emotions based on just what your face did were almost always wrong. Not only were they not reliable, they were almost always inaccurate. Everyone makes, quoting him again, everyone makes different facial expressions based on context and cultural background. It's important to realize that not everyone who smiles is happy. Not everyone who is happy smiles. I would even go to the extreme of saying most people who do not smile are not necessarily unhappy. He continued, and if you are happy for a whole day, you cannot walk the streets being constantly smiling and happy. It's just not going to work out. I hear you get like wrinkles and stuff that way too. He didn't weigh in on that. The researchers also looked at different algorithms used by companies to determine a customer's satisfaction, which is scary in and of itself to think that there's a whole bunch of cameras out there now watching us as we walk out a store or as we purchase something or even talk to someone, and they're judging how our face is doing. And he said some claim they can detect whether someone is guilty of a crime or not, or whether a student is paying attention in class based on what they're doing with their face, and whether a customer is satisfied with a purchase. What our research is telling us is those claims are all a bunch of baloney. He actually did say baloney. There's no way you can determine those things, and worse, it can be really dangerous if you do. As facial technology becomes, more of a thing, this recognition stuff, this, figuring out who people are, I imagine a whole bunch of companies will turn to trying to study exactly this type of thing. So it is interesting to hear this report come out that says it's completely crap and we're not really going to be able to rely on it at all, because I do see it as a progression that obviously scares probably a lot of us to think that we're going to be in a world where not only are a bunch of cameras on us, and not only does so much more of our information that we share out there in the world get picked up and collected by these companies who then research, where we go, what websites we're on, all that stuff is one thing. But to then start studying what faces we're making while we're inside stores, the future is interesting for so many of us here. The future is, I think, scary in some ways. But hey, at least none of us are sick right now. At least none of us, are dealing with things like, I guess, the coronavirus or whatever. So things are going up for a majority of people here in this country. We just have to worry about facial recognition technology. One last story, and then I will take a break. I think this is interesting, too. And I don't know that we needed a study to really confirm this information for us, but social media has been pinned as the newest thing that's making breaking up with someone tremendously painful for several reasons. There's the more typical reasons that you think of right after you end a relationship and you're on social media and you have to, I guess, acknowledge it if you're Facebook official or whatever. People are very upset that whole process is now a part of the breakup. You're not just telling friends when you bump into them. You're telling everyone you know at once when you have to change something there. But more importantly, I guess, is how social media platforms are now recycling back images, videos, comments you made. They're doing things like these memories, which Facebook does and a lot of other places do, that just kind of like blast the last few months of what you've been doing or years of your activity in your face. So I guess according to a research team that interviewed several people, the experience of breaking up with someone is so bad because it will last between 18 months now. Because of the ways in which all the different social media platforms recycle your memories, the average breakup isn't completely over for someone. You're not completely removed, especially if you try to be friends with your exes, which is just insane. I don't think anyone should do that, although I have heard before that, it's okay. But I don't think for some of us it works out as well. But if you're not in that world, I guess it takes 18 months to fully separate from an individual because of all the different social medias out there. So that is just a PSA here on the Chad Benson Show with Craig Collins filling in. If you are in a relationship and if you're thinking about ending it before maybe a Valentine's Day holiday or something because you don't want to buy that gift, just know that you're going to deal with 18 months of reminders that you're currently single, which may be a good thing, may be a bad thing, depending on who you are. All right, I have to take a break. A lot more coming up on the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in.
Being antisocial sucks. Hang with Chad's friends on Facebook, The Chad Benson Show. And if you just need some alone time, head on over to Twitter at Chad Benson Show. Either way, we can't wait to meet the real you.
Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson. Happy President's Day to everyone out there that's at work, not at work, whatever you're up to. I will be here today. Chad is back tomorrow after the holiday. One thing that was pretty cool, my producer actually shot this to me. Queen, who obviously has had a resurgence in popularity, based probably on the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, but also they're Queen. I mean, I don't think they ever went away. But Queen and Adam Lambert put on a pretty good show. If you haven't seen it, and I don't know if you're a big Queen fan, but I think Adam Lambert is a pretty good fit. I mean, he's not Freddie Mercury. There's not a lot of people in this world that will ever be Freddie Mercury, but Adam does his part and does it well. Anyway, they were asked to play at a benefit for all the Australian fires going on, and they definitely did. And what they chose to do at this benefit, the Firefight Australia at Sydney benefit, it was in a stadium there, is they decided to reenact their iconic 1985 Live Aid performance. I know it's live audio. I know we have some of it, though. Let's hear a little bit of Queen in 2020.
I've done my sentence for committing no crime and bad mistakes. I've made a few. I've had my share of sins kicked in my face, but
Yeah! Man. All right, I have to know. I need to know right now. I'm very curious. Who is driving around in a car with the little, fire thing app, with the little, the lighter app on your phone, holding it up in the air, thinking this is awesome. That sounds pretty good for being live audio and for being, they're reenacting the 1985 Live Aid performance, which was great. Also a benefit. They're now helping to fight the brush fires going on in Australia, and Queen is still Queen. It was fun when they were in the news a lot because of Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't care if you're a huge fan of them or not. It's just cool to see those guys again, to see them getting another shot at. They're one of the best bands in the history of bands. I don't know if that's the hottest take on the show. I can say things about how Trump should keep tweeting, that Avenatti's a terrible person. I can have all kinds of takes on the show, but the least hot of those takes is for sure that Queen is one of the best bands in the history of bands. And even now, even with Adam Lambert playing, I mean, that's fun. I enjoy that. One other story that is on my radar, I don't know if you're following a lot of baseball and this whole crazy Astros thing that's been going on, but there's a new push now. Jose Altuve is the face of that team. Jose Altuve is an MVP. He's one of the best players. He had a home run against Aroldis Chapman of the Yankees, and then desperately didn't want to take his shirt off, which has confused the internet. They wonder if, hey, man, maybe there was some sort of device under his shirt that maybe he's detecting things. But now the latest is all about his tattoo. It's all about what he said in the interview. He didn't want to be, shirtless because his wife gets mad when he's shirtless. And so people are debating now whether or not he's got a tattoo there, what's going on in that world. Maybe we have to see it. They have to prove it. People hate the Astros right now. They are a team unlike most teams I can ever think of in this sport. They will be booed resoundingly everywhere they go. Every organization hates them. At least two teams, the Yankees and the Dodgers, believe they deserve the World Series instead. So it's fascinating to see how this world continues to fall apart for these guys. All right, this is Craig Collins in for Chad Benson. A lot more coming up.
The Chad Benson Show.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
I don't know if I'm excited about that text the show and tell us how we're wrong thing. This is Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson. Chad Benson will be back tomorrow. I don't know if I like it. I like when the fans will highlight the things I'm getting wrong. The fill-in guy, please don't text that much. No, I'm kidding. Text, go ahead. I'll handle it. If I'm really an idiot, they'll probably never have me back, which is a joke I like to make while filling in. And I don't know why I do it. And yet they've asked me back a few times, so I love being here. We are going to talk all kinds of things for the next few minutes. We're going to, definitely hit on the political stuff. I do have some stories about the best temperature to sleep at, which I like that someone studied that Tylenol might be able to help you in ways you're unfamiliar with. But before I get to those stories, before I get the political stuff too, I do want to talk a little bit more about this cruise ship stuff, the coronavirus thing going on. 14 Americans were taken off a cruise ship, and they were flown to the U.S. while testing positive for the coronavirus. The passengers are obviously very happy to be here because I imagine, if anyone out there, any American, if you are going to fight anything, coronavirus, whatever, even David Poppy, even David Ortiz would say this about getting shot in a foreign country, is you would like to be flown back to America. You'd like the care to happen here. You'd feel better about it being at home, probably better about it even if you can't, in this case, interact too much with loved ones, at least being in the country you're familiar with being in, a country that has pretty good health care, I'd say, even if it is kind of expensive. But so I'm sure they're all thrilled to be here. The military bases in California and Texas are the ones that tested positive for the coronavirus. An additional 44 Americans from the Diamond Princess ship have tested positive for the disease while staying in Japan while they recover. Some have been hospitalized, but not at all who are affected are sick. I guess they're just infected without necessarily showing symptoms right now, which is that's a scary thing in the coronavirus. Again, I don't know how much this should be on our radars or is on your day-to-day radar. I doubt anyone is fearful that they're about to come down with the virus. But when you hear described that some people don't really show symptoms, but yet they can transmit the disease, etc., that in and of itself would worry me a lot. A statement was made of the passengers who came back to the United States. These individuals were moved in the most expeditious and safe manner to a specialized containment area on the evacuation aircraft to isolate them in accordance with standard protocols. Passengers that may develop symptoms in flight and those with positive test results will remain isolated on the flights and will be transported to an appropriate location for continued isolation and care. Again, I'm happy they're back. This might scare some people, the headline that 14 Americans returned to our country with current coronavirus, symptoms, etc. But we've cured several infections here in the country already. The virus has been here, so it's not spreading all over the place. It's not, making a whole bunch of people sick. We haven't had anyone die in our country, but yet we're capable of treating it, and I'm sure for the families of these people and the people themselves, they are thrilled to be back in this country. So I think the headline is positive, even if maybe it incites a little bit of fear in some of our hearts. Moving on to other stuff in the news. I did like this a lot. President Trump went to the Daytona 500. He flew over. People saw the plane, and they're like, oh, my God, is that who we think it is? He lands. He chats with them. He gives a little speech. It was all awesome. But my favorite thing now is replaying this audio from Fox about the fans. The fans were talking about how cool it was to see and interact with the guy. Obviously, Trump has been friendly to NASCAR, and NASCAR fans, I assume, would be pretty friendly to Donald Trump. So this is how fans reacted to getting in to see and interact, maybe, with the current president of the United States.
It was exhilarating to have him so close. I mean, I love Trump. He's awesome. He's like my hero, so it was just incredible to have him so close.
I loved it. I think it's great that he's out here.
What could you tell about the energy in the crowd when the president was announced and introduced?
Well, it started when Air Force One flew by and everybody saw the jet, and it just started, and you could feel the crowd energy pick up. I got chills.
What did you think about having the president here?
Awesome. It was awesome.
It was magnificent. Oh my God, what a great jet. I mean, it was awesome. Everybody stood up. We all cheered. This is huge. I've never seen a president come to NASCAR in all the years we've been watching. This is awesome.
Huge. It was huge. I love that. He also took a lap, by the way, which is a pretty historic, pretty fun thing. President Trump took a lap in the Beast prior to the Daytona 500 taking place. Drivers will be careful not to get in the middle if the president is driving around. So he seemed to have a really good time. Fans seem to have a really good time. And I think it's yet another example of a way in which he seems to understand, how to continue to be popular, to continue to be someone that is very well liked and someone that's getting a whole bunch of voters turning out at his primaries, even though that's not something they need to do at all. Honestly, it's stuff like this that makes me think that the election will be a landslide victory for the guy. And hopefully that's something that helps make you happy. I don't know. But it's an interesting thing out there right now to see that he continues to understand who his fans are, where he can interact with them, how he can interact with them, and that they love the guy and that he loves them. I mean, you see him at some of these football things or the basketball events or any of the sporting events that he goes to, and he's with crowds that love him too. So it would be hard for the guy to believe everything that's said about him on the news and everyone that hates him when every time he goes anywhere in public and interacts with people, they seem to really like him. So there you go. The president was at NASCAR and did a lap. I love that. He always makes those jokes whenever he interacts with drivers about how he wants to drive their cars. And so he finally actually got to do a lap. He's like, screw it. We're going. We're doing at least one. I could see him maybe being a NASCAR driver in another life. It's a hard job. He's a little old for a driver, I think. Maybe the health is not perfect, but I could see the guy trying it out. He'd be wildly popular, by the way. The next move is something I've talked about before. I've talked about it on this show and other ones, what Trump does after his political career is over, because when he's done being president, he's not popping back up. He'll give his input, but he's not going to do any other political things. There's not going to be any rumors of him, going and serving in the Supreme Court, etc. He would be good at that point. He'd be done. And I know he can't. I know, Obama's actually, I get it. I get all those things. I understand what I'm saying. But at the same time, what is the next move? NASCAR driver? I would not hate that. NASCAR driver would be pretty interesting, actually. A new story that I saw, it's actually a study that said there's a new way to help you kind of get over any sort of social rejection and or any sort of mental struggles. It comes out of California, and it's kind of surprising. You take Tylenol. If you feel like you're in a situation where maybe you've been, I don't know, rejected by a new group of friends or something's not going your way socially and you're feeling sad, a new study out of the University of California in Los Angeles has demonstrated after testing about 1,000 people that just popping a pill, taking a Tylenol, not any pill, hold on, pull that back for a second, popping a Tylenol specifically has a forgiveness level that's tremendously valuable. I hope this person gets what's coming to them for what he or she did. Might be the kind of thing you're thinking. You might be very upset with someone. And the study, asked different questions on a survey to see if some of the people they're tested were in that current mental state. But after they took a Tylenol, much like any sort of ache or pain in your back, etc., you were like, oh, hey, you know what? I don't mind as much the fact that I was like having this, I don't know, some sort of public war with a person. I feel much better now. So lo and behold, every day we find out new ways to use things. And apparently, if you're feeling down, not a bunch, don't abuse, don't go crazy, but just popping a Tylenol I don't know if it would work like in marriages and stuff. Like if you have a fight with a significant other, those always feel like so important, so valuable. Maybe if both of you just sat down for a second and both took a Tylenol, 20 minutes later, maybe you make up without even having to make up. Maybe all of a sudden you're like, we're fine. We're doing great now. I don't know. It's out there in the world, thanks to the University of California. One last thing, and then I do have to take a break. I saw this. There was a 12-week study into sleep, into how you sleep best. For anyone that struggles to sleep, I think you're always looking for like the newest trick. There's a lot of them out there. But this one is fairly well proven and pretty interesting. You just got to get the temperature right. If the temperature's too warm or too cold in your house, and I guess the blanket ratio is important, not covered here, but I like to mention it. But the right temperature is between 60 and 68 degrees, which is a pretty big window there. But if you sleep always to temperatures like that, apparently your sleep will be better, more valuable, things will be good. No word yet on if you should also add a Tylenol into that equation. I don't know if a Tylenol is a good move in that world, but it might be. But apparently if you just get the temperature right, a lot of things can go better. And actually, you know what? I'm going to be selfish. For just a second, I'm going to talk about me. And I don't know. I get it. A lot of you probably don't care. But at the same time, I want to because it's interesting. And it's about sleep. Have you ever tried to teach yourself a new sleep position? It's something I'm doing right now. I read all this stuff about how sleeping on your back is like the best. Sleeping on your side is not great. Sleeping on your stomach is bad. But it's such a weird thing to try to teach yourself how to do. Dead serious. I really am talking about this. I'm trying to teach myself to sleep on my back, but there's no training. It's not like if you start to add a workout regimen to your life. I can't do it midday. I can't be at my desk at work and be like, all right, 20 minutes of trying to fall asleep on my back. It's just not a thing. I get one shot every single day at night when I go to bed, and I probably need to sleep. I'm not the kind of guy who hits the bed 4 hours before you need to be asleep. And I think that's how many I need to finally get into this world. And I just try. You just sit there and you try to sleep on your back, and your body hates it, and it doesn't work. I read that it's a really small amount of people who are capable of doing this kind of naturally, and the rest of us have to try to learn how to do it. I don't know why I'm so curious about it. It is like a current obsession of mine, and probably why I think a study about the right temperature to sleep at is interesting. But have you tried it? Have you ever tried to mix something up that's really, really hard to do? Because I'm definitely trying this right now. Text us. Go ahead and text us if there's anything that you've tried to change that's a really difficult change, because something like falling asleep on your back is just, I wish I had other ways to trick myself into learning it. I wish there was something else I could do. I can't. I just have to go to sleep and beg for my body to finally accept the fact that I'm being stubborn. But it's been stubborn too, man. It's a heck of a fight. All right, I do have to take a break. I do have a little more political stuff to talk about. I promise it won't be all how to sleep on your back. This is Craig Collins filling in for the Chad Benson Show on President's Day. Happy day to everybody out there. If you're not at work, it's awesome. Some of us are. All right, quick break.
Boys, give me a bowl of chili with plenty of peppers.
One Mexican heartburn. Why don't you mugs grow up?
The Chad Benson Show, where independent, a la carte thinkers have a seat at the table and a voice in the dialogue.
I'll have what she's having.
This is Chad Benson.
Actually, it's Craig Collins. Sorry to disappoint you guys. Chad Benson is back tomorrow. This is the Chad Benson Show, though, and happy President's Day to everyone out there in the world. Everyone, well, I guess in our country. Happy President's Day to you guys, and if you're off work, that's awesome. Chad's off work. He'll be back tomorrow. One thing I've talked about a lot while filling in today has been Michael Bloomberg. I'm just fascinated by the fact, if you're from the East Coast at all, you understand that this guy has stuff in the closet, that there's things that are going to come out about the man. There's things that he's already done, things like the stop and frisk that seem to be tough things to recover from while running for president from the Democratic side of the aisle, and yet he's going to try to do it. And he's not without his supporters. It seems that I think, because obviously, look, Bernie Sanders is leading right now. But he's not the candidate the Democrats want. Well, maybe the voters want, but the Democratic machine does not want to see someone that far off to the side, that, willing to go as left as he's gone, be the actual candidate. I think most people know that someone that extreme would be a tough matchup as far as trying to win an election against a Donald Trump. You'd like someone more in the middle. People in the Democratic Party, I think, loved a Biden. And yet Biden has performed terribly because he's Joe Biden. He says things that make no sense. He makes mistakes that are terrible. And so now the new kind of like white knight on that side is Michael Bloomberg. He's the new guy that might attract people, according to their side of the aisle, with a bunch of this, middle of the ground, whatever kind of nonsense that I think people think he is, when I think there's a lot of ways in which he's not too. But his money is also very interesting, very attractive. But out of all the people to come out and support him, I was surprised that Sam Donaldson was such a pro-Bloomberg guy. And I got a couple clips. Here's Sam talking about Mike.
Mike Bloomberg is best suited to take on Donald J. Trump this November and beat him. And that's something I think is very important for the country. You're right. When I was a working reporter in Washington for 52 years, I never did anything like this. And I think it's very important now. We are in the grip of a sick, ignorant man. He's mean. He's corrupt. And if we don't get this right, we may lose the things that have made this country the best place to live in the world, and that shining city on the hill that Ronald Reagan used to talk about, which was the envy of the world. So I'm in it.
Even dropping a Reagan reference. Man, Sammy. Let's go. Let's hear take two from Sam.
Thanks to Citizens United, a Supreme Court case, everybody's money can get in and do so. Bloomberg is putting his own money in. He's not going to be beholden to anybody when he wins this race. On the other side, Mr. Trump is getting money from Sheldon Adelson, the casino magnate, and that's okay, in Las Vegas, and other fat cats. So he's got a big war chest. And Bloomberg has a big war chest. And I'd rather...
See, what's interesting about this? What I found interesting about the attacks on Pete Buttigieg and how his money came from wealthy people is that if you have too much money in your campaign, on that side of the aisle, because they hate, especially Sanders, hates billionaires, hates millionaires, wants everyone that donates to him to barely be able to afford it, I guess. That's the kind of thing that's great. The thing that's interesting about Bloomberg is that he has all his own funds. He will not be attacked in the same way. His friends, who may even throw money into his campaign, who knows, won't be as big of a focus as they are for someone like Pete Buttigieg, because if he wants to, he can drop $1 billion and just go about the rest of his life without anything. He doesn't care at all. But at the same time, money is not enough to win an election. Al Sharpton is helping point that out on MSNBC, of all places. But Al was asked how he thinks Bloomberg can recover from things like stop and frisk, and, well, Al had an answer.
I don't know what he can do either, but I think the challenge is that we can't just settle for a speech or a tour of speeches asking for forgiveness.
Right.
There ought to be some effort on his part, to say, and therefore I want to try and repair the damages done by this, some kind of criminal justice initiative, some kind of effort for those that were scarred. I also, Mika, don't want to see him as a leaf that the other candidates duck some of their racial baggage.
See, so that's the thing. Everybody's going to be taking shots at everybody, man. It is a thing that you can watch. On Wednesday, Bloomberg might be debating. So if he's debating, I think things are going to get very interesting for all involved. And I think they're all just beating themselves up. It's something that you probably are entertained watching, right? All the ways in which Biden has fallen apart as a candidate. Warren is right next to him in that world. So I think both of them are obviously very, very out. Klobuchar has done what she's done, which she's performed kind of well in the debates, but still I don't think she's going to be in it for the long haul. Pete Buttigieg is someone that might make it, but I don't know how much people want him, the Democratic machine anyway. So Bloomberg's the new thing. And we're all just going to watch and laugh as this entire thing continues to just get murkier and murkier and harder to figure out as we stumble towards something in which the president is as strong as he's ever been and the people fighting him are very confused. That's Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. Chad is back tomorrow. I'm happy to be here, but, I'll enjoy having a day off too.
This is The Chad Benson Show.